often curious to me as to why I get asked to speak at these type of events, because I kind of look at my life and I'm like, well, it's not really that interesting. I'm your typical gal who grew up in a very standard family. I had great parents, great brother, good life. But I guess when people look at it from the outside, they look and they say, well, you've had a pretty fascinating life. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about a time in my life where I felt shifted. And it's interesting, when I was talking to Chloe and getting ready for this speech tonight, I was thinking, what would that time in my life be? I can't really think of a time, but as I got more involved in it, I thought, no, there was this one time in my life where I was at an absolute crossroad, career-wise, and I didn't know what to do. And that time was back in November in 2007, when I personally had to make one of the most difficult decisions that I ever had to do in my career. I panicked, I worried, I sweat a lot, and more importantly, I was scared to make it all on my own. I think that was my biggest fear. I was basically faced with two opportunities in my life, and honestly, it should have been the happiest time in my life, but it wasn't. It was honestly the saddest and the most stressful. On one hand, I'd arrived at my dream marketing job. I'd finally made it after 10 years. I was the director of marketing for this interactive agency, and I had huge growth potentials, and my boss had literally shoved me this entire team and said, this is your responsibility, build it. And then on the other hand, I was offered to host my own television show. Totally unexpected. Here's a six-figure salary, and go for it. Not exactly a situation I thought I would be stuck in at that time. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? Because I was 4 months into my dream job, and then this other opportunity came along. So I just want to backtrack a little bit. I have a few friends sitting in the audience, so they'll understand as I talk a little bit about myself here. To say that I was an organized and practical person is a bit of an understatement. Who am I kidding? When I was 9 years old, this was me walking around when people used to come to you and say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, here's what my spiel was. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted a surgeon, nonetheless. I wanted to live in New York City in a brownstone walk-up on the Upper East Side and date occasionally, because who's going to have time to date when you're a surgeon? And I told this to people, and they would look at me and go, what the hell are you feeding that child, and where is she getting these crazy thoughts in her mind? My father still to this day asks me, so how's the dating occasionally coming? Are you anywhere near getting that brownstone walk-up in New York? Because I want to see that happen. And so they still sort of sit back with a bated breath and see if it actually is. I personally was always in a rush to grow up, and I think like a lot of people, you always want to be ahead of the game, ahead of the step. You're in high school, you want to be in university, and you're in university, you want to be working at your dream job. And the first time I actually heard the song Vienna, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of you know what that song is, by Billy Joel. It really resonated with me because the lyrics to it are, slow down, you crazy child, you're so ambitious for a juvenile. And that just really rung with me. And I started to think a little bit more about it, going, what am I in such a rush to do? So going back to university, I'd left university. I thought, I don't want to do the whole medicine thing. I was burnt out. I'd gotten to a point where I didn't think that I was educationally ready for university. I didn't think that I had the skills or the IQ to do medicine. I was surrounded by all these students in my class that were just brainiacs. And I was like, I failed math. I mean, I was not the type of student that you would see going to med school. And I knew that professionally, I just didn't have the grades. Hands down, I didn't have the grades. And I started to feel a shift in myself as to what am I going to do with my life? Here I had prepared my entire life to get ready for this moment. Now I'm feeling this shift where I'm thinking, holy crap, what if I don't become a doctor? What am I going to do? I was worried and ridden with anxiety, but I realized I had to figure out something. And I hated feeling out of my comfort zone, because as a lot of people know that I'm a very in control person. I'm not a critic, but I love to be in control of my life, and this is where I felt my wheels were spinning a little bit out of control. So I literally took a job in the mailroom. My father hooked me up with this great firm. I was in the mailroom schlepping mail, delivering it to all these executives, thinking, what happened to my life? And much to the chagrin of my parents, they were sitting there scratching their heads wondering, what the hell happened to this determined daughter of ours that wanted to be a doctor so bad? And my father was sitting there going, I could always just see you doing something in the creative field. And I thought, you're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. I didn't take art class. I didn't do drama. I didn't do any of that sort of stuff. But he always said, you're going to do what you want to do. We support you in what you want to do. But I'd see you doing something creative. And he just kind of stood back and just let me live my life. And that's just how supportive my parents were about my brother and I was, we're going to encourage you as much as we can, but ultimately you're going to have to make that decision what you want to do. So I worked my way up from a mailroom person to eventually a receptionist, a secretary, then a coordinator, a manager, and then a director, and then eventually a business owner. I guess my father was right. He always saw me doing something like this in business, so I guess he kind of always knew that was always going to be there for me. So once I had my new career direction, it was balls to the wall, man. Nobody was going to get in my way. I was determined. I had faced every difficult boss known to man on my way up the ladder. I had been fired twice, actually. Actually, I got fired from what I thought was my dream job at the time when I got this really great job at an ad agency. I was a coordinator level, but I had the attitude, it's like, I'm going to go up to creative director. That's where I want to go. That's where I'm going to end up. Unfortunately, my boss had other plans for me, and we just bashed heads. And I think looking back to that point in my life, I realized that she didn't like to see that in other people. At least that was my perspective. I was more and more willing to just be ambitious, get my teeth into any project that I could, and take on more and more responsibility. And I realized that she didn't like that so much. So going back to November of 2007, I had finally got to my dream job and my dream career. I panicked for a couple of reasons. The biggest is that I had only been at my new job for 4 months. And I felt like I was packing up and running to join the circus. Honestly, I didn't know what to do. I hated letting people down. They were so excited to have me on board. I basically spent the last week driving myself nuts. And I was more afraid of making the wrong decision. And I think it's a pressure that I certainly put on myself a lot, is making the wrong decision and letting people down. And I just basically wanted somebody to make the decision for me, because I thought, heck, if it's the wrong decision, I can blame them. I'm like, you told me to do this because you thought it was good for me. But what I realized in the course of the week, that regardless of whatever decision I made, I knew that it was going to be okay. It was almost as if a weight had lifted off me. And I remember the night very specifically when I had to finally make the decision. I had 4 business partners relying on me, and we were relying on each other to say, are we going to go with this television show, or are we just going to continue doing our day jobs and let this opportunity slip through our hands? And I remember waking up that morning and thinking, that's it. I knew it. I knew that I had to take that risk in my life, take it out of my comfort zone, do something completely extraordinary that nobody gets the opportunity to do. Not everybody gets the opportunity to host their own television show and get the experience to work in front of the cameras and learn about production and everything. I'd never acted. I didn't even like seeing myself on camera. But I knew it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I knew that all 5 of us were going to do it as best we could and succeed as best we could. So I decided to take the biggest risk of all. Quit the job I'd worked so hard for and do the television show. No guarantees or promises. And I think at the time, my family and friends were all looking at me just, really excited, but they were also just going, what are you doing? Because my parents on one side were like, well, who's going to pay your mortgage? Who's like, you're making money doing this, but what if it ends after one season? What's going to happen? Of course, my parents, being the fiscally responsible people that they are, that's what they were thinking about. Well, here's why I did it. Because looking back, I realized that something as simple as starting a money group, gaining control of my finances, accomplishing things I never thought I could, unexpectedly ending up on stage with Oprah, publishing 2 books, turning a hobby into a business, and now landing a television show. That's why I did it. And all the risks I took in the past 3 years took me to this point in my life where I was faced with one of my greatest challenges. I had to go for it. I had to. There was just no other way. I had gotten to that point in my life where this is it. And it was I started to become a lot more comfortable with taking certain risks in life. And I think, as I took those baby steps, I've become so confident in taking opportunities that have come my way that have taken me out of that comfort zone. Because I knew that when I was playing it safe, God had other plans for me, and it just wasn't going to go the way I wanted. So I was on the bus, and I wanted to arrive at my destination. So I did, and I honestly don't regret a thing. And you'd be amazed where it's taken me today. I've since yet started another business, Brat Face. I get a lot of questions. Where does the word Brat Face comes from? And I'm originally from Newfoundland. I know I don't have an accent. I left when I was quite young. But bratface is a term of endearment that parents call their kids. And really what it means is you call somebody who drives you so crazy, but you love them so much, you let them get away with anything. So I decided to coin my new company Bratface because that's who I am. So I started the business and the smart cookies. I get a lot of questions about how the smart cookies are doing. And those 2 seasons on Canadian television, what can I say? They only lasted 2 seasons, but it's given me the experience and the knowledge of the industry to now take it to the US. And I go back to that day when I was trying to make that decision on my life, whether it was the right one, and I know that it was, because now we've gotten the opportunity to possibly work with Oprah on her new show, on the new OWN network. And had I not taken that time in my life to sit back and think this could be an opportunity that could blow you out of the water, I never would have been here today. And who knows, you might just see us on an upcoming show in Oprah in her last season. So sitting with Chloe and talking about what I was going to talk about, she's like, what do you want people to come away with after your talk? And I guess one of my biggest things is inviting you and challenging you guys to embrace the difficult, uncomfortable situations that you are faced with. And think about how they can change your life in a positive way, because that's certainly what I did. And knowing that if you are smart about them, you'll always land on your feet. Take the leap of faith. Don't question yourself or your abilities, because they will prevent you from going for these dreams you never thought were possible and embracing the opportunity in life. It's sort of a similar feeling. I kind of describe it to women who have never been mothers before, and they all of a sudden have a baby and they have this overwhelming experience, and people say, what's it like? What's it like? And they're like, I can't explain it. You just have to embrace, you have to experience the opportunity. But more importantly, believe in yourself to know that you are making the best decision for you. And nobody else, and the ones that truly believe in you are the ones who are there at the finish line to see you accomplish something. So I know that a lot of the people in the audience here are the ones that are kind of at that pivotal moment in their life where they don't know what to do, or they're trying to accept certain challenges in their life. And all I can say is just go for it, because I think I'm a fairly good example of what taking that risk can do. Thank you.